Okay, this is what is called an applique. This little piece of fabric has been cut out and fused to this piece of fabric with some special other kind of fabric, so it won't come off. But what we're going to do is some embroidery around the edge of the heart, and if you want to, you can do it in the middle of the heart, either following these up and down lines or these cross lines, or any way you want. But the point of what we're doing is this is actually called an applique because you're using two different pieces of fabric on top of each other. And the first stitch we're going to learn is a blanket stitch that goes around the heart. The first thing you have to do is hoop the fabric in an embroidery hoop. Okay, so the inside hoop has a little ridge on it. You can see right there. And it goes inside a little channel in the other hoop. So you put this hoop down, the middle hoop, the bottom hoop. You can either center it. I would recommend doing that to start with. But if you find that you can't get the stitches made the way you want, you can offset it any way you want so that you can reach the part of the heart that you're trying to work on. You can offset it any way you want because there's plenty of fabric to just center whatever part of the heart you're working on. So for right in this minute, I'm just going to center this heart in this bottom hoop. You can kind of see where it's going to go. And then I'm going to put the top one, whoops, on top of it. For right now, it doesn't matter where the screw goes, top, bottom, sideways, doesn't matter. But this screw tightens the hoop. So, and you want to tighten your fabric just a little bit. Like that. And tighten this up. Just screw it down. Okay, that's the beginning. Before we start stitching, we need to decide what color is going to work on this design. You've got pink and you've got green already here. So you need some contrast between these two colors, something darker that will show up. If you use this pink, you won't be able to see all the work that you do. But if you use this hot red, you will definitely be able to see it. Or kind of the purple will show up, something a little bit darker than the background and the applique. That will show up. This might not show up so much. Yellow will show up. This might not because it's a little bit light, but it might. It's up to you. But the higher contrast, the darker the color, the more that your work is actually going to show up. So let's start with this kind of a magenta loveliness. You don't want your thread to be terribly long, maybe 18 inches. So I am going to cut my thread right there. And this is not really thread, this is embroidery floss. And we need to separate it. Okay, you can see that there are 6 strands to this embroidery floss, but we don't want to use 6 strands, we only want to use 3. So we split them apart and carefully, slowly undo the strands. And then thread the needle. Doing that in a camera is a trick. But we got it. Oops, completely off camera. Okay. Put a tiny knot on the end of your working strand. Okay, so you have your strand going up to your needle, through your needle, and part way down. So you don't want to tie a knot into both ends. That end is going to move. See that? All right. We're going to start at the edge of our embroidery, of our applique, right there. Now what we need to do is imagine a line inside the applique as wide as you want, but I would recommend just under 1/4 of an inch. So pull this thread up. Let your knot hang on, make it stay there. Turn this way. Okay. Bring your thread back down here. Hold on to it with your thumb. Go down and up on the edge. Put your thread over here. Go. It's easier on the thread if you go all the way down, pull it through, but hang on to your loop. Get rid of your tail by pulling your thread through. Poke your needle back up. Or hang on to your loop, make your loop, hang on to it with your thumb. Put your needle down, put your needle back up, where you want it to come back up, and make one motion out of 2. One more time. Down, up on the edge, hold onto your loop. There you go. You can also make your stitches longer, shorter, closer together, any way you like. They don't need to be all uniform. They can be all mixed up. They can be skinny. They can be further apart. But right this minute, I'm running out of room to work my stitches right here, so I need to move my fabric. So I'm going to unscrew that, loosen up the hoop, pop that off, move this over, put my hoop back on, have to loosen it back up a little bit. That a little bit tighter. Tighten up my screw. Okay, now I have room to work. Keep my loop. Go back up on the edge. One thing to remember when you're going around a curved edge is to make your stitches change angles. Do you see how if I made the stitches upright like that on this edge, they'd be going sideways instead of into the heart? Keep that in mind. And I'm about to run out of thread, so I have finished one stitch. I'm going to go down right there into the back of my fabric, and what that does is hold the stitch hold the loop. So I'm going to carefully pull that to the back and go to the back side and make a knot by not really going into the fabric, but going underneath that stitch, making a tiny loop. See that loop? And then going through that loop from the back side to make another loop. It's in there somewhere. Anyway, you make 2 loops, go through the second one again, and then you use your fingernail to pull it tight, to work it into a tight knot. Okay, then cut your thread a little bit longer so that it doesn't come apart. I need to add some thread, so I'm going to bring it down part of the way, make a knot just by wrapping it around your finger and squirreling it off the tip of your finger and making a knot. Then you need to bring up the thread right where you went down to make your last knot. Right there. Bring your loop around and start again. Keep your loop. Ouch. Oops. Okay, when you get knots like that, don't pull them tight. Just work them out. It's just a slip knot. It's made on its own. Use your needle. It might take a minute to dislodge it. And it's easier when you can put your work down and work on it with both hands. It took me a minute with both hands, but I got that out. It was just a slip knot and it was very tight. But I just kept working with it. Get your fingers wet and get the kinks out of the yarn, out of the floss. Straighten it out. Keep going. Hang on to your loop. Ouch. Keep going. Let me just show you again how my fingers work when I'm doing this. Hang on to that loop. Put your needle down. Use these fingers to gently push the needle into the second position, which is at the edge of the applique. I use my fingernail to get it to go a little bit farther, and I use this thumb to poke it up, and these fingers, see how that pokes up? See my finger back here behind it pokes it up, and these fingers pull it out. Then I gently let it Don't pull really fast, else you make knots. Do it again. Poke it down with your fingers. Use the back finger to poke your needle up toward the edge. Use a fingernail, or even this works if you're not poking really tough fabric. But I use my fingernail. I use that thumb right there to poke the needle up so that I can grab it and pull the thread through. Okay, now my thread is not long enough again. Pull the needle up a little bit. Make that end come up toward the needle so that I have more thread to work with. I'm running out of room to work on this bottom edge of the heart. So, unscrew my embroidery hoop. Take the outside hoop off. Recenter the point of that heart. That should give me enough room. Work your hoop back on. You might have to unscrew it, loosen it up a little bit more. Pull your fabric, tighten it up a little bit. Tighten up your screw again. Tighten up your fabric. Oops. Okay, when I start again, I'm going to come right back up. There. I'm going to come up from behind, right where I went down from the front. Okay, I came up from the behind, right where I went down from the front. My knot is made on my yarn, on my embroidery floss. Hang on to my loop. Make another stitch. When your thread is new and long, just go slow when you're pulling your stitches up. And try to give you a little bit different perspective. This is how I'm actually holding it. I've got the hoop on the table in front of me, and it's just supported by this hand, by my left hand. Maybe you can see the stitches a little bit better that way. I'm trying to hide this split with a little bit longer stitches and a little bit closer together. Pulling that slowly so it doesn't make a knot. When it's about to make a knot, I pull it up and untwist it. Just have to go slow and deliberate and not make your thread crazy. Whoops. Okay, I missed my loop. See that? So I just have to make the loop and go through it. Okay, at this point you have a couple of options. You can either make your stitches go into the center, or you can go keep them perpendicular to this edge, and then go over those stitches when you're coming back this way. I think I'm going to try to make a point. So I cozy up my stitches on this edge and spread them out on the outside edge. Okay, this thread shouldn't be here. Pull this thread. See how they disappeared? Then pull my needle up a little bit. Okay, cozy up my stitches. Go down to that point. Now I'm going to turn this corner and spread out my stitches on this side. Keep going up the side. Sometimes your thread gets twisted. That's from the movement of your hand. It puts a twist in it, so you just have to untwist it. See, I'm rolling my needle through in my fingers. And now it doesn't have twists in it. And then straighten out this end so that it doesn't make a knot. Pull it up a little bit more. Now you won't have trouble pulling your thread up to make your stitch. Okay, I'm coming up on the end, coming back to the beginning. I just want to close this little space. So I'm going to go down into here and up into that where I just started, where I very first started. And then, if I want to, I can put maybe one stitch right there to even things out. I think I will. And that will hold my stitches. Looks fairly even. And make a knot. Might have to go into my fabric a little bit to make a knot because I don't have a stitch close by. My loop is kind of raggedy. I'm going to go into my loop, make a second loop, pull that loop so that the first one's tight, go into that loop, and pull it up. Use my fingernail to tighten it up. And cut it off.